Life has a way of teaching us the most profound lessons when we least expect it. For one wealthy businessman, that lesson came on an ordinary Tuesday morning while he was walking through the downtown area of his city. He noticed a young girl, no more than 12 years old, sitting on a bench outside a small cafe. What caught his attention weren't her threadbare clothes or her tired expression, it was her shoes. They were falling apart, held together with duct tape and what looked like determination. With a smirk on his face, he approached her. The businessman, James, had grown accustomed to judging people by their appearance. He'd built his fortune in real estate, starting from modest beginnings but somewhere along the way forgetting where he came from. "Those shoes have seen better days, haven't they?" he remarked with a chuckle, pointing at the girl's worn-out sneakers. The girl, Emma, looked up, her eyes meeting his without a hint of shame or embarrassment. "They still work," she replied simply, with a quiet dignity that momentarily caught him off guard. James continued, unable to stop himself from offering unsolicited advice. "You know, there's a discount store just around the corner. Even $20 could get you something better than those." He reached for his wallet, ready to display his generosity with a small handout that would make him feel better about himself. Emma thanked him politely but declined, gathering her small backpack and standing up. "I have to go meet my brother now," she said, hurrying away before James could say another word. Something about her response left him feeling strangely unsettled, as if he'd missed something important. Curiosity got the better of James, and he found himself following Emma at a distance. He told himself it was concern for the child's welfare, but deep down, he knew it was something else, something he couldn't quite name. He watched as she met a younger boy outside a school building. The boy's clothes were as worn as hers, but his smile when he saw his sister lit up the entire street. James moved closer, remaining partially hidden behind a tree, close enough to hear their conversation. "Did you eat lunch today?" Emma asked her brother. The boy shook his head. Ms. Parker was absent, and the substitute didn't know about the free lunch program. Emma nodded understandingly, then sat down on a nearby bench and began removing her shoes. James watched, confused, as she handed the tattered sneakers to her brother. "Here, try these on. They should fit you now," she said. The boy's eyes widened. "But what will you wear?" Emma smiled, pulling a pair of even more worn-out shoes from her backpack. "I found these in the donation bin. They're too small for me, but I can make them work until we save enough for new ones." James felt something crack inside his chest as he watched this exchange. The girl he had mocked moments ago was giving her only decent possession to her younger brother without hesitation. He remembered the $20 he had so casually offered, thinking it would solve her problems, or more accurately, absolve his conscience. Now he understood why she had declined. It wasn't pride, it was because $20 wouldn't have been enough for both of them. As the children walked away, Emma now limping slightly in her too small shoes, James remained frozen. The expensive coffee in his hand suddenly felt cold, his designer watch too heavy on his wrist. He had completely misjudged the situation, seeing only what was on the surface without understanding the depths beneath. And in that moment, he knew he couldn't simply walk away and forget what he had witnessed. The contrast between his life of excess and these children's struggle for basic necessities was too stark to ignore. He thought about his own childhood, how far he'd come, and how thoroughly he'd sealed himself off from the realities faced by others. Something had to change, and it had to start with him. The following day, James found himself returning to the same spot, hoping to see Emma again. His mind had been restless all night, filled with images of the girl and her brother, their quiet dignity in the face of hardship, and the selfless love between them. He brought with him a shopping bag containing 2 boxes of quality shoes, one for Emma and one for her brother, but he knew this gesture was just the beginning of what he needed to do. Hours passed with no sign of the children. Just as he was about to leave, he spotted them walking slowly down the street. Emma was still limping in her ill-fitting shoes. James approached cautiously, aware that his previous behavior had likely left a poor impression. "Excuse me," he called out softly. Both children turned, instantly wary. Emma positioned herself slightly in front of her brother, a protective gesture that spoke volumes about their experiences with strangers. "I wanted to apologize for yesterday," James began, feeling uncharacteristically nervous. "The way I spoke to you was wrong, and I'm truly sorry." His words felt inadequate, but they were sincere. Emma regarded him silently, her young face showing a maturity beyond her years. Her brother peeked around her, curious but cautious. "I brought something for both of you," James continued, holding out the shopping bag. "No strings attached, I promise." Emma hesitated before accepting the bag and looking inside. Her expression remained neutral, but her eyes widened slightly at the sight of the new shoes. "Why?" she asked simply, a question that carried more weight than its single word suggested. James found himself struggling to articulate his feelings. "Because you taught me something important yesterday," he finally said. "Something I had forgotten." Emma nodded slowly, seeming to understand. She turned to her brother, showing him the shoes, and for the first time, James saw her smile, a transformation that made her look like the child she was supposed to be. "Thank you," she said, and the genuine gratitude in her voice made James realize how rarely he heard those words spoken without expectation or obligation. The moment felt significant, like the beginning of something important, though he couldn't yet see where it might lead. As the children tried on their new shoes, James gathered his courage to ask about their situation. Emma was hesitant at first, but eventually revealed their story. Their mother worked 3 jobs to support them after their father had abandoned the family 2 years ago. They were behind on rent, and their electricity had been shut off last month. The school lunch program was often their only reliable meal of the day. Despite these hardships, Emma spoke without self-pity, simply stating facts as they were. Her main concern was her brother's well-being. "He's really smart," she said proudly. "He's going to be a doctor someday." The younger boy beamed at his sister's words, clearly used to her unwavering belief in him. James listened, truly listened, perhaps for the first time in years. He wasn't thinking about his next meeting or checking his phone for messages. He was fully present, absorbing the reality of these children's lives and feeling increasingly ashamed of his initial judgment and condescension. The contrast between their struggles and his own trivial concerns was humbling. What started as a chance encounter transformed into a committed relationship. James couldn't simply walk away after learning about Emma and her family's struggles. He arranged to meet their mother, Maria, a hard-working woman whose exhaustion couldn't mask her fierce love for her children. Initially suspicious of his intentions, Maria reluctantly accepted James's offer to help with their immediate needs, paying off overdue bills and ensuring they had food and other necessities. But James knew that temporary assistance wouldn't solve their long-term problems. He began to leverage his business connections, finding Maria a better-paying job with regular hours and benefits. He established an education fund for both children and became a mentor figure, particularly to Emma's brother, who indeed showed remarkable academic potential. The change in their lives was dramatic, from constant crisis to stability, from survival mode to having opportunities for growth and development. But the most significant change was perhaps in James himself. The arrogance that had once defined him gave way to humility and genuine compassion. 6 months after their first meeting, James hosted a small celebration at his office for Maria's promotion at her new workplace. As colleagues and friends gathered to congratulate her, James found himself standing slightly apart, watching the transformed family. Emma caught his eye across the room and walked over, now confident in her stride. "You look different," she observed with a direct honesty that had first caught his attention. James smiled, knowing she wasn't referring to his appearance. "I feel different," he admitted, surprised by his own candor. "You know, I never properly thanked you." Emma looked confused. "For what?" "You're the one who helped us." James shook his head. "For showing me what true generosity looks like. I had all the money in the world, but you, with nothing to spare, gave your brother your only decent pair of shoes without hesitation. That day, you were the wealthy one, not me." Emma considered this, then smiled. "Maybe we're both rich now," she said, glancing at her family. James followed her gaze, understanding exactly what she meant. True wealth had nothing to do with money. The transformation in James's life extended far beyond his relationship with Emma's family. The experience had awakened something dormant within him, a sense of purpose that had been buried under years of pursuing financial success. He established a foundation focused on providing practical support for working families struggling to make ends meet. The foundation's programs included emergency assistance for housing and utilities, career development opportunities, and educational support for children. James approached this new venture with the same drive and strategic thinking that had made him successful in business. His motivation came from a deeper place now. He remembered his own childhood struggles, experiences he had deliberately pushed aside in his climb to the top. Now, instead of being ashamed of where he came from, he drew strength from it, using his first-hand knowledge of poverty to create truly effective programs. Other wealthy associates, seeing the genuine change in James, began to contribute as well, expanding the foundation's reach throughout the city. Each new family helped reminded him of that first encounter with Emma and the shoes that had changed everything. Emma and her brother became unofficial ambassadors for the foundation, particularly in their school and neighborhood. Their story, carefully anonymized, inspired others to both seek help when needed and offer assistance when possible. Emma, who had once been so focused on mere survival, discovered a talent for public speaking and a passion for advocacy. At 14, she gave her first speech at a foundation fundraiser, moving the audience to tears with her articulate description of what it feels like to be a child responsible for a family's well-being. James watched from the sidelines, his heart full of pride and his eyes damp with emotion. He thought about how close he had come to missing this connection, how his arrogance had almost prevented him from recognizing the extraordinary spirit in the girl with the tattered shoes. His mind flashed back to that first day, his casual mockery, her quiet dignity, the moment he saw her give away what little she had. That moment had broken open his carefully constructed world and allowed something real and meaningful to take root. As Emma concluded her speech, James knew with certainty. The ripple effects of that chance encounter continued to spread, touching lives in ways neither James nor Emma could have anticipated. Local business leaders, inspired by James's example, began creating similar programs in their own communities. A network of support emerged, connecting resources with needs more efficiently than before. James found himself regularly speaking at business conferences, not about maximizing profits but about corporate social responsibility and the unexpected rewards of genuine community engagement. His message resonated particularly with young entrepreneurs who were seeking to build businesses with purpose from the ground up. One evening, after such a talk, a young woman approached him. "Your story about Emma reminded me of my own childhood," she said. "I've been successful in tech, but I've been feeling like something's missing. Tonight I realized what it is, the connection to why I started in the first place, which was to solve problems that affected families like mine." James nodded understandingly. "Success feels hollow without purpose," he replied. "But it's never too late to realign your resources with your values." The conversation continued, planting seeds for yet another transformation. 3 years after their first meeting, James invited Emma and her family to the opening of a new community center in their old neighborhood. The center would provide after-school programs, job training, healthcare services, and a food pantry all under one roof. As James prepared to cut the ribbon, he asked Emma to join him. "This wouldn't exist without you," he told her quietly. Emma, now a poised teenager with plans for college, looked at him questioningly. "I'm serious," James insisted. "You changed my life that day. You showed me what really matters." Emma smiled, her confidence now matching her compassion. "We changed each other's lives," she corrected gently. "That's how it works." As they stood together before the gathered crowd, scissors poised to cut the ceremonial ribbon, James reflected on the beautiful simplicity of Emma's wisdom. We change each other's lives, for better or worse, through every interaction, every judgment, every act of kindness or cruelty. The true measure of success wasn't what you accumulated, but what you contributed. And sometimes, the greatest teachers come in the most unexpected packages. What began as a moment of shame and regret for James had blossomed into a complete reinvention of his life's purpose. The businessman who once measured people's worth by their appearance now saw beyond surfaces to the human stories underneath. His wealth, once a source of pride and separation from others, had become a tool for connection and positive change. James often reflected on how differently things might have turned out if he hadn't followed Emma that day, if he hadn't witnessed her selfless act. He might have continued on his path of comfortable isolation. Instead, he had been granted a second chance to align his outer success with inner fulfillment. The friendship between James and Emma's family deepened over the years, transcending the initial helper-recipient dynamic to become a relationship of mutual respect and affection. They celebrated holidays together, shared meals, and supported each other through challenges. Maria eventually joined the Foundation's board, bringing her valuable perspective as someone who had experienced both the struggle and the climb out of poverty. "You know," she told James during one meeting, When you first approached us, I was sure you wanted something from us." James smiled at the memory. "I did want something, though I didn't know it at the time," he admitted. "I wanted to remember who I really was, beneath all the trappings of success." This journey of rediscovery had led him to reconnect with his own estranged family members and to make amends for past arrogance and neglect. He reached out to former colleagues he had stepped on during his climb to the top, offering sincere apologies and, where possible, opportunities to collaborate on new ventures. Some rejected his overtures, their hurt too deep to overcome, but many responded with cautious openness that gradually evolved into renewed trust. James accepted both responses with humility, understanding that genuine change required patience and consistent action over time. His transformation wasn't perfect or complete. He still struggled with old habits of judgment and impatience, but the direction of his life had undeniably shifted toward greater authenticity and purpose. And it all began with a pair of tattered shoes and the extraordinary girl who wore them with dignity. Emma's high school graduation day arrived with much celebration. James sat with Maria and her younger son, watching with immense pride as Emma walked across the stage as valedictorian. Her speech echoed themes of resilience, community, and the power of seeing beyond circumstances to possibilities. "4 years ago," she told her fellow graduates, "I met someone who changed my life by seeing not just what I lacked, but what I had to offer. He taught me that generosity isn't measured by how much you give, but by how much you hold back for yourself." Her eyes found James in the audience, and she smiled. Sometimes the people who seem to have everything are the ones most in need of receiving, and those who seem to have nothing are the ones with the most to give. After the ceremony, as they gathered for photos, Emma handed James a small gift box. Inside was a keychain with a tiny shoe charm. Attached was a note that read, "Thank you for walking alongside us on this journey. The path ahead looks brighter because you helped clear the way." James, not usually emotional in public, found himself blinking back tears. That evening, as James drove home from the graduation celebration, he reflected on the journey that had begun with a moment of casual cruelty and evolved into one of life's greatest blessings. He thought about how easily we dismiss others based on superficial judgments, how quickly we categorize people as less worthy of our attention or respect. And he thought about Emma, how she had given her shoes to her brother not as a calculated act of charity but as a natural expression of love. In that simple gesture, she had embodied a truth that many adults spend lifetimes trying to learn. Our humanity is defined not by what we possess but by what we're willing to share, not by how we protect ourselves but by how we care for others. As he pulled into his driveway, James made a silent promise to himself and to the universe that had orchestrated that fateful meeting. He would never again walk past someone in need without truly seeing them. He would remember that behind every worn-out shoe, every threadbare coat, every tired face was a story deserving of respect and a person capable of teaching profound lessons about what truly matters in this brief, precious life we share. Life's most significant moments often come disguised as ordinary encounters. What appears at first glance to be a simple interaction, a wealthy man noticing a poor girl's shoes, can unfold into a narrative of transformation that touches countless lives. This story reminds us that true wealth isn't counted in dollars but in moments of connection, in opportunities to grow beyond our limitations, and in the courage to see others, and ourselves, more clearly. It challenges us to question our assumptions about success and value, about who has something to offer and who stands to gain. Perhaps today, you've encountered someone without really seeing them, made a judgment based on appearance, or missed an opportunity for meaningful connection. Or perhaps you've been on the receiving end of such judgment, feeling invisible or diminished by someone else's narrow perception. Either way, this story invites us all to look deeper, to recognize the dignity in every person we meet, and to understand that sometimes the greatest gifts come from the most unexpected sources, like a young girl with tattered shoes and an unwavering heart. The true measure of wealth might be found in our capacity for empathy. Have you ever noticed how the most profound life lessons often come from those who seem to have the least to offer by conventional standards? This story of James and Emma reminds us that wisdom doesn't correlate with wealth, and that our capacity to impact others isn't determined by our material resources. It invites us to examine our own encounters, both as the judger and the judged, and to consider how we might approach each interaction with greater openness and humility. What might change in your life if you began to look beyond appearances to the humanity beneath? How might your perspective shift if you recognized that every person you encounter has something valuable to teach you? The path to a more compassionate and connected world begins with these simple yet revolutionary acts of seeing and being seen. As you move through your day, remember Emma and her tattered shoes, and challenge yourself to look deeper, to listen more intently, and to recognize the extraordinary potential hidden within ordinary moments. Because sometimes, the greatest gift we can offer another person is simply our genuine attention, and sometimes, the greatest gift we can receive is an unexpected lesson. Remember that moment when James first mocked Emma's shoes? Think about how different both their lives would have been if he hadn't had the humility to recognize his mistake and the courage to make amends. This story isn't just about charity or helping those less fortunate. It's about the transformative power of genuine connection across divides of experience and circumstance. It's about how our preconceptions limit not only our understanding of others but also our own potential for growth and fulfillment. Each of us has the opportunity, every single day, to be either James or Emma. We can judge or show dignity in the face of judgment, give from abundance or share from scarcity, learn or teach. Often, we are both in different moments and different relationships. The question is, are we paying attention? Are we willing to be changed by our encounters? Are we open to finding value and wisdom in unexpected places? These questions aren't just philosophical, they're practical guides for living with greater awareness and purpose. They're invitations to expand our understanding of wealth, success, and significance beyond the narrow definitions our culture often provides. As this story draws to a close, I invite you to carry its message forward into your own life. Consider the Emmas you might have overlooked and the lessons you might have missed because someone didn't fit your idea of a teacher or mentor. Think about the opportunities you have, regardless of your financial situation, to offer something of value to others through your attention, your respect, your willingness to see beyond surfaces to the humanity we all share. The true wealth of our world lies not in bank accounts or possessions, but in these connections, these moments of recognition and growth. These opportunities to become more fully human through our relationships with one another. This isn't just sentimental idealism, it's a practical pathway to a more fulfilled life and a more compassionate world. So the next time you notice someone's tattered shoes, or whatever equivalent catches your attention, remember James and Emma, and choose to look deeper. That choice might just change everything. For them, for you, and for the countless others touched by the ripple effects of one moment of true seeing. The power to transform lives might be closer than you think. Has this story touched something in you? Perhaps it's reminded you of moments when you've judged too quickly or times when someone has seen your true worth beyond your circumstances. Maybe it stirred a desire to create more meaningful connections in your own life or to use your resources, whatever they may be, in service of something larger than yourself. If so, don't let this moment pass without taking action. Consider how you might apply the lessons of James and Emma in your own community. Look around with fresh eyes. Who might you have been overlooking? What unexpected teachers might be waiting to share their wisdom with you? What gifts might you have to offer that have nothing to do with money? These questions aren't just food for thought, they're invitations to transformation. And transformation isn't something that happens to us while we passively observe. It's something we actively participate in through our choices, our attention, and our willingness to be changed. If this message resonates with you, I encourage you to share it with others who might benefit from its reminder of our essential connectedness and our capacity for growth. Life presents us with countless opportunities to either reinforce existing barriers or to bridge divides through recognition of our shared humanity. The story of James and Emma illustrates how seemingly random encounters can become pivotal moments of transformation when we remain open to their lessons. It reminds us that true wealth encompasses far more than financial resources. It includes the richness of human connection, the satisfaction of meaningful contribution, and the growth that comes from challenging our assumptions. As you reflect on this narrative, consider your own role. Where might you be like James, in need of having your perspective expanded by an unexpected teacher? Where might you be like Emma, carrying wisdom that others need to hear, regardless of your external circumstances? Each of us contains multitudes, judge and judged, helper and helped, teacher and student, often simultaneously. The boundaries between these roles are far more permeable than we typically acknowledge. Perhaps the most valuable insight we can take from this story is the recognition that transformation is always possible, that it's never too late to see more clearly. I encourage you to carry the spirit of this story into your interactions today and in the days to come. Notice the assumptions you make about others based on appearance or circumstance. Practice looking beyond these surface judgments to the full humanity of each person you encounter. Consider that the most valuable teachers might not come with credentials or recognition, and that profound wisdom often emerges from experiences of challenge and constraint. Most importantly, remember that each interaction carries the potential for transformation, not just for the other person, but for you as well. This isn't about grand gestures or dramatic changes. It's about small shifts in perception and response that, over time, can lead to profound differences in how we experience and contribute to the world. Like James, we all have opportunities to move from judgment to curiosity, from separation to connection, from self-absorption to purposeful engagement. And like Emma, we all have gifts to share that transcend our circumstances. Gifts of perspective, resilience, and authentic presence that can touch and transform lives in ways we might never fully know. The choice is ours to make. Have you been touched by what you've heard today? Has this story of an unexpected connection between a wealthy businessman and a girl with tattered shoes resonated with something deep inside you? If so, I invite you to take a moment right now to reflect on how you might apply its lessons in your own life. Perhaps there's someone you've been judging by appearances who deserves a second look. Maybe there's a gift you've been holding back that someone else desperately needs. Or perhaps you simply need the reminder that your worth isn't determined by your material possessions. Your worth is defined by your capacity for connection, compassion, and growth. Whatever insights this story has sparked for you, don't let them fade away as you move on to the next video or the next task on your to-do list. Instead, consider how you might transform awareness into action, how you might become more intentional about seeing others clearly and allowing yourself to be truly seen. This story reminds us that transformation isn't just possible, it's constantly available to us through our everyday encounters and choices. But it requires something from us. It requires the humility to recognize our limitations, the courage to move beyond them, and the willingness to be changed by what we discover. James found his life profoundly enriched when he looked beyond Emma's tattered shoes to the extraordinary spirit they contained. What might you discover if you began to look at the people in your life with that same quality of attention? What treasures might be hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to notice them? And what parts of yourself might be revealed through these more authentic connections? These aren't just rhetorical questions. They're invitations to a richer, more meaningful way of moving through the world. If this message resonates with you, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story of unexpected connection and transformation. Your presence here matters, and together, we're creating a community committed to seeing beyond surfaces to the deeper truths that connect us all. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, sometimes the most valuable insights come in the most unexpected packages, like a pair of tattered shoes worn with dignity and love.